I am.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Avagnoni.
bringing you this week's Ascended World. And if I could just try to maybe pull this up, I don't know why it's not showing me the page. That's so weird. Not now. Maybe that's what tries to give you these things. Ah, there we go. There we go. Now I'm getting the page and here we are. No, is that this week? Yes.
Avagnoni.
All right.
Put that volume up.
Yep. All right, I think we got it together now.
For the moment.
For the moment. So, interesting topic that has come up. Always interesting, right? Never a dull moment. Even when we think it's a dull moment. But happy Monday. We have done so much clearing now. What we discovered this past week is, one of the biggest shifts for us has to do with letting go of our propulsion, right? Our propulsions, and they're almost always have been based on either it's to spite somebody or to get away from a situation or somebody, right? That's our motivation, or to draw us to somebody or get their approval or get their love or whatever, both externalized.
Or to prove something to either to ourselves or to a friend or an enemy or a relative or.
Well, that's what I'm saying, to spite somebody. It's like, no, I'm going to do this to spite them, or and I'm going to prove you wrong or whatever, right? So when we got to that and we clear out that slate and say, you know what, I'm not going to do that anymore. I am doing it all for me, doing it from a place of self-love, blah, blah, blah. Well, then guess what happens? Then all of a sudden you're going, well,
nothing.
Nothing. And then it's looking in the mirror and going, well, if all of that I did before was for somebody else, who am I really? Like, who am I? What do I really want?
And what really serves me, what really, trips my trigger, what really lights my fire, what ignites my passion, feeds my passion, feeds my soul.
Right. In a way that is just mine. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I was having a conversation with a potential client last week and we were talking about that and passions and what we tend to get to in what we call, I guess, heart-based, whatever interests.
Right.
Like when we say heart-based is like from emotions and feeling and intuition and, right brain stuff and whatever. I always have to think which side, but it's like, then we get to this place of, okay, well, I want to explore my passion and I want to do so and in serving others. And I'm like, but that's actually an oxymoron, because when you explore your passion, it's not to serve others.
It's to serve you.
We have completely convinced ourselves that the only purpose we have here is to serve others. And by the way, it is, but it's in a very different way than we think it is, right? We think, which is ego and mind.
Well, and if you look back at, like, for instance, art and the greats like Picasso and all the big artists now that's painting sells for millions died poor because they weren't valued until they were gone. And so, and I'm making a big assumption here, but they did it for themselves. They didn't do it for the fame. They didn't do it for the glory. They didn't do it for the recognition. They did it because it was something within themselves that they had to put on canvas.
Right.
That they had to externalize, a piece of them that they identified and needed to externalize it. And that was the most important thing for them.
Right. And we
don't start there.
No. Well, culturally, we discourage that, right? So culturally, we discourage that because it's like, well, what good are you to society if you're only
That's
serving
so unproductive.
so unproductive? And, okay, that's fun to do on the weekend, but then, do something that makes you valuable to society, to helping other people, right?
Right. And a lot of times, I would say a good majority of the time, it comes back to, well, can you support yourself?
Right.
Can you make money doing that?
Right. Oh, well,
And the emphasis is placed on it's only valuable unless you can make money from it to support yourself, to blah, 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 blah.
well, and I don't even think it's that. I think it's because then you're considered valuable, right?
Within the whole, right.
Which means that
Of
other people
society.
then approve you as valuable, right? And
Right.
the cultural expectation and norms is that you're valuable, instead of because you like the value being because you are in your passion. And this is what I was explaining to somebody, the person I was talking to, is when we truly look at exploring our passion, we look at what really makes us tick, what really helps us get up in the morning, like say, you know what, I am so excited to live today. I'm so excited to live now. I am so
Right.
jazzed about every moment. And it doesn't have to be like a thing. It can be just, we've talked about, really at the end of the day, the ultimate intention is to embody our happiness. Well, that's the same thing.
Right.
Embody bliss.
It's what gets you up. It's what makes you forget to eat. It's what makes you not need to sleep as much. It's that other source of nourishment.
Which is inside. Yeah.
Right.
Right. And we're so not attuned to that. We've gotten so far away from that we don't even know, now we've attached the ego to the expectation of, oh, when I live my passion, it's going to serve everybody else. And I said, well, here's the service. Here's where the service truly lies. When we allow ourselves to be our passion, be our bliss, right? Be what makes us tick, be what is our perfect note in the symphony of this multiverse, right? That we came here to be embodied as, right? Then our vibration is so high in a space of pure love that everybody around us wants to emulate that. And it gives them the opening and the space to say, I can do that for me. And so it becomes a ripple effect of, I am serving others, because if I hold myself in this vibration, they will naturally just want to be that way too. And then they can do it themselves, and then they can do it themselves, and so on and so on and so on. And that takes so much weight off of us.
It's almost like giving someone else permission to do
Yes.
the same for themselves.
Right.
And I saw this commercial, and I swear I think it was TJ Maxx. And I don't know if it's because it was Women's Month, Women's History Month. I don't know if that's why, but it was a commercial and it was women, and it was like, who gave you permission to be you? And it was like these women saying, nobody. I didn't need permission. And it really struck me, because it was like, you grow up and it's like, you look everywhere for permissions. You look everywhere for role models. You look everywhere for, what am I supposed to do with myself?
Right.
And this was one of those things where it's like, those that break out of that mold and find that boldness and that bravery or courage or authenticity, whatever word you want to put to it. And it's like, who gave you permission? Well, I didn't need permission. It was always right here.
Right.
But we look for it.
Yeah, well, because we're so geared to externalization or external validation, right? That you have to tell me I'm an awesome person for me to be an awesome person, versus I know I am divine, infinite being, without you having to see it or not, right? Because you're only going to see it if you're in that space of being able to see it.
Right.
It has nothing to do with me. And so there was a point I was going to make in there and I totally forgot, but yeah. Good morning, Sandy. Yeah. And so we get to this constant external validation of all of the things that we judge, which is a judgment, which is ego, are
Right.
good things to do, or being a good person, or what's going to make me a good person that's valuable to this society. And it's like, we think about it all that way, but then what if it's just, I am, it's the program that I was doing, and it's like, you're the PhD, you have a PhD in your life, and it is completely unique to you. So anytime we have this imposter syndrome, this is where the imposter syndrome starts to come up again. We clear away all of the stuff that says, I was motivated to get away from that situation. I created this life for myself because I wanted the opposite of what I grew up with, or I wanted to get away from this, or I wanted to emulate that because that, was a happy thing when I was a kid, or it was an unhappy thing, all kinds of stuff. Or this person did this to me, so I was going to show them, and I was motivated to create this. And then you get there and you go, well, I'm not happy. Like, this isn't what makes me happy. It's all right. It's better, but it's not.
Well, and then you start the whole, gosh, but I invested so much in this, and I've already started down this far down that path, and how would it look if I said, oh, my bad, and go the other direction?
Oh, well, I think about, when I left corporate 16 years ago, right? And it was like, what? Everybody was like, what? Like, you have a fabulous job and a fabulous paycheck, and you have pretty much anything you want, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, but it didn't flip my switch. I got exactly what I had wanted and set out to do. And now I realize it was all because it was getting away from, or, showing people like I could do this, and that it could be different, and like that kind of stuff. And so now I've cleared out all that. Now I've seen it, because I never really saw it until this past couple of weeks. Right. And then it's like, well, crud, if that's really, so this is what goes on, because now what's going on with a lot of us who are in this path of, active consciousness, is we get to that realization, and then we're like, okay, well, now I'm going to commit to just coming from my central self, being self-central from my heart. And then we say, well, I don't even know what that is, because my entire life has been driven by those propulsions and motivations from other people and other situations and outside situations. And then then the imposter syndrome comes in, right? Because then you're like, well, crap, I've not been anybody who I thought I was. I'm not who I thought I was. I don't even know who I am.
Right. And when you start really picking apart the things that you believe have made you happy or will make you happy, and come to the realization that it's all very externally based and substanceless, if that's a word, that you really go, well, then I don't know what makes me happy. I don't know what to do.
Right.
And it's almost like you have to get to that place of realizing that before you can say, okay, the slate's clean.
Right. Obviously, I've cleared enough away now that I don't know who I am anymore.
Right.
Well, because the identity of the ego, right? The ego explores identity. And when you pull away all the things, and the ego is driven in duality, right? And duality is about propulsion, this or that, this against that, the yin and the yang and all that kind of stuff. And, to balance. And when you take all that away and say, no, I'm whole and complete as I am.
Always have been.
Right. Always have been. Then it's like, oh, well, all of this stuff, these stories that I've built up about myself, these stories that I've built up about my life, they're just completely irrelevant, because they just don't make any sense, because it was all about external stuff. And then that's when, I had the imposter thing hit me hard last week. Hard. Good morning, Michael. Right. Yeah. And it's like going, it was funny because I finally came around this, because I'm like, well, wow, all the stuff that I've been doing for this motivation of other people, for the motivation of, and it was to spite somebody, or I'm going to show you, or I'm going to show them, or I'm going to do this to spite them, or I'm going to do this to gain their love, right? We do that all the time. We do things for our kids because we want them to love us. We want to do things for our parents because we want them to love us, or our spouses because we want them to love us,
Yeah. Sandy says, yes, totally. And there are so many layers hiding between the other layers and crevices. LOL. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
it is. I don't know. It reminds me of the brain, about how all the surface area of the brain with all the folds and everything, and it's like really having to get down in there and dig and seek it out and say, okay, that I see you for what you are, and it's not to judge it. It's
Right.
just I see you for what you are, and either go or stay depending on how much joy I derive from this.
Right. 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 And that's the key is, as we've been talking about a lot in the past several weeks, is getting to that place of non-judgment, right? Of seeing ourselves without the judgment, because then it's like, I can't believe I did the judgment. I can't believe I did that. I can't believe that was my motivation. Well, then if I did this, then I must have done this. And if I did this, and this is all related, then what good it is, but what good is it? But then the next step, and that's what I had been pushed to do last week, was to come to that place of sitting with it, but also then acceptance, but going beyond the acceptance, like last week, to a place of gratitude to say, well, but it got me here. It got me here today.
Exactly. And what in the process of getting here today can I repurpose?
Right.
Or grow from, or add on to, or nourish in a different way to bring about a different response.
Right.
And I think that that's where, we tend to stop short and go, oh, I'm just going to throw it all away. The baby, the bathwater, the soap, the tub, the everything.
Right. Right.
And
sometimes that's okay. Sometimes that's what it's called for. That's what's called for. Absolutely. That's happening for right now. Yeah.
Right.
So, the key was going back and, because then what happened was, once I sat with it and let go of the judgment and let go of, because the judgment also included that imposter syndrome, right? Well, then who are you? You then we're faking it the whole time, right? That wasn't really
and anything other than, embodying that divine essence that we are, isn't being an imposter.
Right. Right. So it's like, okay. And I was looking at, okay, well, what if you blah, 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 and like all the things that motivated me. And it was like, wow, like the thing, when this came to my consciousness and I started doing this, what I do professionally 11 years ago, then I started questioning all my motivations for that. Right. And who am I? And if I got to that, who am I? And how could I, then the imposter thing, all this kind of stuff. And you did all this and da, da, da. And then finally, after I sat with it and just looked at it and I said, except you now have been doing this for 11 years, 11 years. So even if you were faking it before, you totally know your shit today.
Right.
And it was like, it wasn't that I was, it was just, it was just that whole perception. Cause then you're saying, well, then who are you? And you only did, and it was like, no, actually, this is the first thing. And this is what actually started to peel away. Getting into this and doing this work was the first thing in my life that I did for me. It was the first thing that I truly just did because I thought it was awesome. It was magical. It's fun. And then I morphed it into other people because, then you start working with other people and things like that. But it's like, okay, well, if the core of that is true, that was part of, just me, then it's to blossom from that core and to reconsider how it, how we do it. So that's the whole thing, is what is when you sit with it without that judgment, right? And you say, okay, I'm not going to judge that I don't know who I am. I'm not going to judge that everything that I've done has been to gain somebody's love or to do something, to overcome what I feel like did to me or, or whatever. And then it's like, okay, well then how did all of those situations serve us? It's no different than when I work with a client who's been raped or, abused. And I say, okay, so when you look at it without judgment, how did that serve you in the big picture of your journey? Because it always has some kind of propulsion or some kind of vision to give you without the judgment.
Right. Sandy has a comment. You were guided to do all of this, Angel, and it's been incredible. So many aspects are authentic to you.
Thank you, Sandy. I didn't know it's true. I mean, I know, but the thing is, the mind starts going, the ego gets in there and is like, who are you? And I'm not even just, it's just everything. It's talking about the life that I live, the household situation, the family.
How you spend your energy.
Yes, how I spend my energy. And it's all of it. And it was like, wow. And I realized that all the things that I put in my path over the past 11 years have been things that I believed I needed to be punished for because of the elements of coming from me and not for somebody else that were in it.
Right.
So once I saw that, I was like, oh, well, then I'm ready to change that. Enough of that.
I can make it different now.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to make something different, you have to fully understand it first. And you have to understand the origin and not only where it came from, but what's continuing to feed it.
Right.
And once you have a better understanding, a non-judgmental understanding, it's easier to disassemble that and say, I can use pieces and parts of this for
Yes.
other things.
Yes. And put it back together in that pure, authentic being.
Yes.
Instead of the doing.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yes. It's like you almost got it right. There was just some shades off. And so by taking those pieces and parts in their purest form and then combining them in a completely different way, it changes everything.
Right.
Changes everything.
Yeah. It's just moving it that little bit to make it come in focus kind of thing.
Right. Right.
So yeah, the biggest key I feel like for ourselves is to give ourselves a break, to listen, to hear that voice of, the imposter thing, the loser voice in your head, the criticism, the critical judgment.
Yeah. Yashmin says totally relate to that.
Yeah. But it's to get past that to the quiet of that stillness, of the presence, of sitting with it. Right. And I think that's what we've been really experiencing a lot of this past month. Right. So it's, and it was funny. I had the opportunity Saturday night. I had several hours of that because my husband and everybody in the house were doing something else. And I was like left on my own. And I was like, it was so nice to peel everything back, to just sit with it, to just like take a breath and immerse myself in those moments. And then that really shifted a lot for me, a lot. Because then yesterday I woke up and I was in such a completely different place of, okay, I feel fresh now. Like I feel like I'm ready,
Right. Yeah. This past week, I've spent a lot of time examining the motivation behind my behaviors or actions, and not just saying, not immediately jumping to judgment about it, but saying, okay, what if I tweak that just a little bit and came from the same activity, but a different mindset or a different energy from the perspective of why am I doing this? And that really made it's such a small difference, but it magnifies as it goes out, just like the mistakes in the Hubble telescope.
Right.
When you get out that far, you miss a whole galaxy just because it's like
0.004
of a degree. But when it's magnified, so that really changed things, and it lessened a lot of the judgments I had. Because I know when I left corporate, people were like, why are you doing this? Well, I wanted to stay home with my kids. And the motivation behind that was to fill a need that I had that I wasn't filling for myself. And when that became overwhelming, then it was like, well, okay, so then how do I make money to make this better? While still feeling this sense of obligation. And that just totally derailed my life for years, fighting that, commitment, but non-commitment to nothing.
Right.
And it really makes me sit and look now, coming back to what I'm passionate about and what I want to spend my energy on now. It's almost like I've got this coin person. It's like, I'm not just going to give my passion to just anything anymore.
Right.
And that really, and looking at it differently, like the weekend, it was gorgeous here. And I had decided to repurpose 2 large containers of rock, small rocks at that, to a different place. And normally I would have been like, oh my God, this is going to take forever. And I was so, I guess you want to say, mindful about it. And I just sat with it, and it went so fast and was so cathartic, and just, I'm doing this. And, and I'm seeing the bigger picture. And and anytime I'd get frustrated, like, oh, this is going to take forever, I would just go, or it can just be this minute right here, right now, and bringing it back to the present moment. And boy, what a difference that made. And it all got done, and it all was just the perfect amount of stone to do what I wanted to do in the other place. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And it wasn't, oh, it's hot, or, oh, it's, I'm hungry, or I'm thirsty, or the bugs are bothering me. It was very, I'm just moving rocks.
It's funny when you say it that way. I'm just moving
I'm
rocks.
just moving rocks.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. And I would look up and I'd have a full wheelbarrow, and I'd be like, okay, now how am I going to lift it? But I did.
Right. You did. Right. Yeah. We, well, and I will always say that working outside the yard is one of the best cathartic things. Always. I mean, earth tends to bring you to earth. Like, it just brings you so present. Right.
Right. Well, and keeping, because my passion was the visions that I had. And if I kept refocusing on those visions, the picking up, 5 rocks at a time, hundreds and hundreds of times, got me through it. Mm-hmm. Just being able to keep that vision and coming to the end, and then having that vision, it was like, it was even, for a change, it was even better than I envisioned it. Because normally I'm like, oh, well, it wasn't quite what I had in mind. Right. Or it didn't quite get there. And this time it was above and beyond my expectations.
Right.
So I can't help but feel that the energy that I put into it is what made that different.
Yeah, it's just your presence with it. Right. And that makes all the difference. Right. If we get through our day to just be able to say, I made it to the finish line at the end of the day and get to bed, well, then we're missing a lot of things, and we're rushing and pushing through and not being present with every moment, because we see there's so much for us to see in all those moments.
Right. And I know there've been times in my life where my favorite time of the day was bedtime, because then I could just turn it off and escape. And it's like, whoa.
Right.
That's a red flag. Something's not working.
Right. And I think one of the things, there's a little exercise that we've learned or whatever, is that would be great for everyone here to try. Because I think it's a great way to start practicing that, which is, it's called the glimmer exercise, which I really liked, which is, it's a matter of, like, we have moments when we're not present, we don't really notice them. So we have moments in every day where we are just completely okay, like, meaning okay in a good way, like everything's great. Right. So it can be a moment of looking at a flower, like a bee, like, to me, it's like looking at the bees and the flowers or something like that. Or sitting with my cat when the cat's like purring on my lap. Right. Or, sometimes it's just like, I have a east facing glass sliding door in my bedroom that is a great view from the bed. And it's like, sometimes the sunrise in the morning, especially now because of the leaves still haven't filled out in the woods behind us, so you can see it
Right,
come up.
right.
Beautiful moments of just contentment, of being, right? And we have them and they're so fast sometimes because we take a moment and then we move on, right? That we don't take that time to really appreciate that moment, right? And it can be something as simple as having your smoothie in the morning, or that you really find delicious, and just really appreciating the taste as it, goes, is being
Right.
injected into your body, or
Right.
and so they're called glimmer moments. And if you did this exercise, as everybody's exercise for the week is, notice those in every moment and notice them as glimmer moments, and that like, and they're glimmer moments of remembering our presence and happiness, right?
Right.
Something that we find lets our bodies, if we're conscious with our bodies, just go for a minute.
It's that let go.
Yeah.
And in letting go, there's such expansion
Yes.
in that just letting go.
And so the exercise in that is to get into the habit of doing that in every day and being consciously aware of those moments. And you can journal about them, or you just take note of them, because then you expand them to what they call glow moments, and you let them expand out to, sort of affect the moments around it until you get to that point where all of it becomes that, right?
Yes.
So what does Sandy say? Yes, when I was a teenager, my favorite quote was, take life one day at a time. Nowadays, it's more like take life one moment at a time. Be grateful for each moment and what each one brings. Right. And so this exercise, this glimmer exercise, is a great reminder of that. Like, and it gets us looking for, it's like, okay, can I find 10 of those glimmer moments in a day? Can I find 15 of them? Can I find 20 of them? And then the more you do that, then you expand them into those glow moments. And then it's, can I just maintain that for an hour in everything I do? And then it just starts to spread, sort of like I just see that.
It's that reprogramming or repatterning our senses.
Yeah.
To be aware of that versus, oh, here comes another problem, or, I don't want to get the mail, or I don't want to answer my phone, or I don't want to look at the kitchen. I don't want to face another meal, versus what's the next glimmer moment.
Right. And this is a great time of year for that, because it's coming into spring. Right. So for me,
Right.
I love going out to get the mail, because then I walk through past the garden in the front and I see all the things, like the peony plants are up and open and getting ready to bloom soon. And like, you see the buds starting, or the plants pushing through the ground and stuff, depending on where you are.
Right.
So it's all this like newness. And it's like, to me, I love those moments, because it's like, oh, look at the new life. Right.
Right.
Coming to life.
Well, it's I always look at it as like a gift, because it easily could have not made it through the winter.
Right.
But it did.
Right.
And it's there for another season and more glimmer moments.
Yes. Yeah. So, everybody should try that this week. Set a goal. Say, I'm going to notice 5 of them in a day.
Right.
Start at 5 and then go to 10. And just take note of them. And then I've just found doing that has actually created awareness and presence for me a lot more, because you're looking for them. Then you start to look for them. Right.
Right.
And then you just start realizing.
Everybody's gotten into the habit of, they have to stand for at least a minute every hour, because, their watch or their Fitbit or their whatever tells them that they need to do that. Add a glimmer moment within that standing time. Add that, just make that connection to an already established pattern. And then you've got 12 a day.
Yes. Yeah. And just take note. And sometimes you could be washing the dishes, or something. And
right. And Michael says, letting go to allow life to be your glimmer moment. Exactly. Getting to that place.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. I mean, it was funny because yesterday we were in the store, and usually, doing our grocery shopping, and usually I'll bypass the whole section, the flower section, and just walk past it or whatever. And yesterday I stopped and I was like, look at all of these flowers. And it was so funny, because it's like, I pass it every weekend and I'm like, oh, look at all of these beautiful flowers. And my husband and I ended up getting a dozen of these beautiful roses that were like white on the outside and lavender on the inside, which was such a beautiful combination. And I was just like, yeah, I feel like getting those. Like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, well, let's get them. And I was like, okay. But because I'm getting into that place of appreciating all those moments and looking for them. Right.
Right.
So, and it can be anything, it can be just a moment that you're sitting there and suddenly everything feels like it's all good.
Right. Right. And then, bring that full circle at the end of the day when you sit and you recount all your glimmer moments and you
Yes.
recount, and that's like pulling them into the present moment with you again.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So, and this ties into what we're talking about, because as we look at and we're present with our glimmer moments, we get to know ourselves better from a pure state of being.
Right. Because that's not something that's influenced by all those external factors. It is something that springs from deep within your authenticity, to where you can identify it, because I remember that.
Yes.
I don't know from where, but I remember that.
Yeah.
And the more you give your attention to that, then the larger it becomes.
Right. Right. And I feel like in the past month, I've been doing this enough, or so much, that I realized yesterday that while I actually am it's like I'm getting to know myself in a different way completely. Like,
Right.
and it's so much stronger. It's so much more pure because it's not based on an external foundation anymore.
Right. Well, and those external forces have lost their spell over you.
Yes.
You've seen them you've sat with them, you've had gratitude for them.
Yes.
So that it's you've completed that. There's no unfinished business to draw you back to that, to say, oh no, there's still something here for you.
Right. Right. And that's what I started looking at this weekend. It was sort of, it's like saying, some people say it's like going from black and white to color, right? But it's more subtle than that, because when you've been exploring that self-consciousness, that self-awareness for a long time, it's like, no, it's more subtle and more saturated though at the same time. So it's like going from like 1970s color films to ultra high def today. Like, yeah, it was in color, but now it's like saturated. Have you ever looked at, when you look at ultra high def, it's like, wow, it's like you can reach out your hand and touch it. That's what it sort of has become. And I realized that this weekend, or yesterday, there are a lot of parts of me that I know in that saturation already. Like, and I didn't even realize that I was pulling those out a piece at a time while I've been going through all this. So then I was like, oh, well, then all of a sudden everything got quiet, because it's like, oh, well, okay, maybe I do know myself a little better than I thought.
Right.
I've been doing that this year in a different way. So that's the key. And that's why the glimmer things is a great place to start, because it does start to let you appreciate your being. Right. And what gives you the good feels, because
Well, and we spend so much time looking for what's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll always find something, because we're putting energy to finding it. So in that effort, we're creating it.
Yes.
So if we make that just slight shift into looking for what's right.
Yes.
And I don't mean right and wrong, good and bad. I mean what
aligned.
Right. What invokes that sense of joy and that glimmer.
Yes. Yes. So what do we set for our clearing today? Well, I allow myself those glimmer moments to see the window into my pure, authentic self. I allow myself to embrace the glimmer, right? I allow myself to remember what my bliss truly is.
Maybe I allow myself, I don't know, something about the source of it, because that comes from that authentic place. I allow myself access.
And clarity.
Oh yeah, clarity's good.
Yeah.
All that.
All that wrapped up in a nice little bow.
Right.
All right. Well, let's all get comfortable. Take a deep breath and close your eyes as we open our hearts and step out of separation back into wholeness and oneness. And we set ourselves at the vibration where that is our truth. That is from where we exist, create, and experience. All right. Wow, that was a lot longer than I thought it was.
That was good though.
Yeah, it was really good. I saw this big, well, what was left of a piece of armor on my shoulders, and it was like something came and just clipped them off, and I was like, it was really nice. But I was seeing that happen for a lot in the collective. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was almost like the more we do that for ourselves, again, the more we do it for ourselves, the more we allow it as a collective, and then the faster we evolve, so very nice. Okay, so how about you? What did you see?
I saw like a lot of lines and geometry and like, vortexes and vertices and, like rearranging how everything's aligned. That's what it essentially came down to. It was very productive, so to speak. Yeah, and it was the more I allowed, the more I saw. The
Right.
more I just kept sinking
Right.
into it and expanding in it, and so that there was more to see, and more to see, and more to see.
Yeah. Sandy says that was beautiful and powerful. I saw the glimmer moment become a glow moment and became the universe. Oh, that's really beautiful. Yeah. Hey, Anne. And then Michael says, released all of the waiting for,
For the bliss, and had the epiphany that external hurdles come up on my track to overcome when I'm not in allowance of my bliss.
right.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So everybody, I want to see you in the comments. Say, yes, you're going to do the glimmer moments this week. Come on, let's do it.
Right. That's
Let's all
right.
commit to it. So put a yes in the comments if you're going to do it. And we'll come back and report in next week.
That's right.
Make it. So.
And for everybody watching, please
Everybody
like, share,
Yes.
follow us, all those good things to let us know that you enjoy this. You are getting something out of all this that we're doing.
Yes, pass it on and let's expand the movement. Oh, good. We got a bunch of yeses. Yay. All right,
Yay.
cool. We'll see you next week, and we're gonna ask everybody to report in and see how it goes. So everybody have a great week. Thank you for
great
joining.
glimmer week.
Yes, a great glimmer week. So have a great one. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg, Avignoni.
we will see you next time on Ascended World. Bye.